Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
My name's Dean. I'm a person in long-term recovery from addiction, and this is Inside Addiction. I'm joined on the set today again by my friend Jay. What's going on, Jay?
Everything is good.
So, Jay, today I thought we'd talk about this book that I just finished reading, The 12 Stupid Things That Mess Up Recovery. Now, it's only a half-hour show, and I know we could probably do an entire series between the both of us. So let's jump right into the 12 Stupid Things That Mess Up Recovery. This is a book available online. It's by Alan Berger, PhD. So let's talk about the first one. Believing addiction to one substance is the only problem. Now, you and I know the best chance for recovery lies in total abstinence from all mind-altering drugs.
Absolutely.
We're powerless over mind-altering drugs. The truth is, use of any drug increases the likelihood of actually using our drug of choice. Now, I know I've heard, I'm sure you have too, the marijuana maintenance and the incidence of cross-addiction actually taking place where somebody stops using their drug of choice but goes to something else, and eventually what ends up happening?
They return to their choice of drug.
And the other thing too I think is important is when we use any mind-altering substance, we really don't have the ability to learn from our experiences if we're under the influence. Our judgment is clouded.
Absolutely. And it's not only the substances, it's the activities surrounding them. So if I'm not changing the people, the places, and the things, then I'm feeding the same beast. If the people that I'm associating with are still indulging in that lifestyle, then eventually I will return to that lifestyle, including the drug use. And so not only should I abstain from all drugs, but I also need to abstain from the things that are included in the drug use, the conversations, some of the events and activities that surround my drinking and drug use. If I'm not changing those things, then I'm just, the only thing that's missing is the drug use.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, Jay, because let's take, for example, someone that is addicted to cocaine. So they no longer hang out with other people that are addicted to cocaine, but they continue to hang out in a bar. So what's the difference? You traded in the people that, the people, places, and things that are associated with cocaine, but it's those same things that are associated with the alcohol, for example.
Same conversations, same kind of lifestyle. No real change to create an environment that's conducive to long-term abstinence. And if I'm not having that conversation, if I'm not feeding that type of lifestyle with those activities, discussions, and those people, then I'm gonna eventually return to all of the things that I used to do that I say I no longer wanna be involved in, because that's how it usually ends up.
And I think, Jay, it's important to mention this exception because I know, and I think you know as well, sometimes in recovery, when we're actively using, we take things to the extreme.
Very much, very much.
And in recovery, likewise, that can happen as well. The exception to this rule, obviously, is any psychiatric medications that are prescribed in that they're to be used as directed. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, hey, any use of mind-altering substances. The exception, obviously, is medication that you're prescribed and taking it as prescribed. No one's going to say, hey, because you're in recovery, you should stop taking your medication that you take for bipolar or schizophrenia.
That would be counterproductive.
Bad things are going to happen.
Yes.
So let's go on to stupid thing number 2, Jay. Number 2 out of 12 is believing that sobriety will, quote unquote, fix everything. If life was that easy, right? If drinking and drugging were our only problem, once we stopped, all of our problems would stop, right?
Yeah, well, then there would be a lot of people that would be living problem-free, but that's not reality. Reality is that when we stop drinking and stop using drugs, we're better equipped to handle those problems that would normally happen in life. And it's not the same kind of problems. I'm not getting arrested. I'm not having violent altercations in my home over money that wasn't paid to the landlord, or any of the chaotic craziness that is associated with drug use. Usually it's, bills and work and kids and managing the schedule. Those problems are going to be there.
That's life on life
That's
terms,
life
isn't
on
it?
life terms, absolutely. Those are the things we have to deal with. But I'm better able to deal with them because I'm at home and I'm grounded, I'm focused, I understand what my responsibilities are and I'm available to them. I'm not breaking down every time something comes up that I didn't anticipate, like an extra bill that comes through in the mail, or a car breaking down, or my kid is getting in trouble in school. Those things happen. How I deal with
They
them,
happen to everybody, people that aren't drinking and drugging.
absolutely. How I deal with them says a lot about what kind of recovery I'm aspiring to. If I'm falling apart and glorifying the problem, then the problem becomes bigger than my blessings. But if I look at what I have going on that's right, and I take into account my blessings, and I look at that problem, but I live in the solution, the problem eventually goes away, and I'm able to go on with my day. But if I sit there and I just look at the problems, man, and I say they shouldn't be there, but I'm doing nothing to make them go away, then my problems get magnified, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, Jay. Problems are a matter of perception too. The whole terminology and word problem, that's very subject to perception. The point you bring up though is like, sobriety is not going to fix everything, but it gives us the ability to solve our problems. I remember, when I first got sober, somebody once said to me, hey, for example, the best and worst thing about getting sober is you get your feelings back. It's the best thing and the worst thing. Can we talk about a real practical example in sense of this from your life recently?
As far as feelings?
Sobriety doesn't solve everything, doesn't fix everything. I mean, things still happen. People lose their jobs. Bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
Our loved ones, I was just talking to someone the other day, and they said, when they first came into recovery, somebody said, hey, buy a suit because you're going to go to weddings and funerals. 100% of people, 100% of the time, die.
Yeah.
Some die prematurely. And that's an experience, an unfortunate experience that you recently, had to endure with your friend.
Yeah.
And how did you handle that?
I'm still dealing with that. That's going to take a while. I was very close to this man. We've been together for a long time, and we did a lot of stuff together. And even after I got sober, he was one of the most important people in my life up until he died. And I was able to attend his funeral, give comfort to his mother and kids, and it didn't create in me any desire to do something wrong. It only reinforced the fact that I need to keep doing what I'm doing. And I would hope that that's what he would want for me. That's what I think, when I'm thinking of him, that he would say, Jay, keep doing what you're doing, because there's no reason that I could think of that I would turn in.
No good reason.
No.
Maybe some excuses.
Yeah, I could make excuses for anything, but excuses are bridges to nowhere. They help nobody. All they do is satisfy my pride. But as far as me living the life that I'm living now, I wouldn't change this for nothing. And that includes death. And I'm sorry that my friend is gone, but I can't give any, there's nothing that I could do good by returning to the way that I used to live. And that's attitudes and behaviors included.
Do you think you would have been able to handle his passing as well if you were actively using?
No.
No doubt in your mind?
No. I would have, no. It's when we start living a certain way, we lose a lot of those attitudes and negativity. It just doesn't fit the life that I'm living. It doesn't, how am I going to show my children, how to be if I fall apart and start acting crazy because something happens? They need to have that steadfast, example of responsibility and responsible reaction or response to things. If I'm responding like, a madman, then, I'm not teaching them anything. Well, maybe, we teach each other two things, what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
But usually when you teach someone what not to do, they do what they're not supposed to rather than learn from someone else's mistakes. So,
Yeah. And which brings us kind of to number 3. Stupid thing number 3 is pursuing recovery with less energy than you pursued your addiction. This is a great one. This goes to, as far as I'm concerned, the thought of half measures avail us nothing. And also, you really get out what you put in, and go into any lengths. I know for myself, if I wanted to get drugs and I wanted to get high, snowstorm, 8-10 inches of snow in January, that's not going to stop me.
Nothing.
No money, that's not going to stop me.
No.
No ride, I'll walk.
I'll walk. And I talk about this all the time when I'm facilitating groups that, when people say, well, I don't like going to meetings, I don't know anybody, or I'm uncomfortable, I don't like what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if that was where you were going to get that bag of dope from, if you knew that there was a bag of dope there for you, and you didn't know anybody that was there, would you still show up?
Yeah.
And if there was a conversation that was being had that you didn't agree with, would that stop you from changing the subject?
Yeah, I'm not going to buy crack because I don't know anybody in that house.
Yeah, it doesn't. They had no.
What if they're
effect.
talking about something I don't agree with?
Those excuses or the reasonings that I hear about people not wanting to do more, get involved with step work, get a sponsor, expand their sober support, fellowship, get involved in activities surrounding recovery so that you could start thinking in terms of recovery, the way that we think in terms of drug use. I knew everything about drug use.
Yeah.
When I was using, I mastered the craft of whatever drug it is that I was using at that time. I knew where to get it. I knew who used it. I knew, the paraphernalia to have. I knew how much to heat it or not heat it, or how hard to pull. All of those things I learned over time because I put energy and thought into it. And I need to do the same thing in recovery. I need to find the people with the best product. I need to affiliate myself with them and tell them the truth. Because when I had a dealer, I told him the truth. I needed him to know and trust me. But I need people to know and trust me in recovery.
It's interesting, Jay, too, because, my experience has been a lot of times I find that people are easily disappointed with the results of the efforts that they don't put in. Because in active addiction is the fast life in the fast lane. And when you get sober and when you start that recovery process, it's not all that chaos and confusion, which in and of itself become addicted.
Yeah.
So I mean, pursuing, and one of the reasons why I feel as though people need to pursue recovery with as much energy as they did their addiction is because, that initial, the air comes out, the wind comes out of the sails, and people are easily bored. And then they don't have their attention. And then that's when things happen. And honestly, the active addictive lifestyle is not real life. That's just.
It's a creation.
Life is not.
It's a conjuring.
Chaos
it's not
and
that
confusion
fast.
and
It's like you hit the fast forward button on a movie and just watch it going extremely fast. And you can't hear anything. You don't get any understanding out of it. Life is a lot more slow. And you get an opportunity in recovery to not only affiliate yourself with certain things, but to feel what's going on, learn from it, share that experience with someone else. I don't want that to go by so fast that I didn't really catch it. I like to slow it down so I can get the best understanding of what's happening around me.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can share it with someone else is when I understand it and I'm doing it. And when I'm doing it and I'm living it, then I want other people to join me and do it the way that I'm doing it too, or at least do what I'm doing with me. And I can't find that in the addiction unless I'm running and have something. Because when I had nothing, there was no one that was there to help me, no one that wanted to give me a hand. But when in recovery, you don't need nothing. All you need to do is come and have the desire to stay stopped, and there'll be enough hands to hold you up until you are able to hold yourself up.
So I think, number 3 here is really about, the cliches and the one-liners we hear about. It's better to be busy than bored, and boredom is a devil's playground. So, I mean, and there's absolutely things that we can do in recovery to get involved so we don't get that attitude of, being sober sucks. There's service work, there's commitments, in the rooms, making coffee, chairing, the different meetings in the support networks, speaker jams, conventions. There's really no reason to be any less active in recovery than you were active addiction. It's just going to give you a better result.
Absolutely. And there are so many different ways to get involved and to have fun. If there's something that you like doing, ask, and maybe that can become an event. Or, there were so many things that I had forgotten how to do. Socializing, involving myself with other people, being honest and developing relationships. I'd get uncomfortable when people started getting close because I wasn't used to that.
Well, and that's a great segue to number 4. You bring up, the acronym HOW. How do we do it? Honest, open, and willingness. And stupid thing number 4 is being selectively honest. That's not easy for us for many reasons. A lot of people in recovery, that selective honesty is almost a protective barrier, because if I'm not 100% honest with you, you can't judge me for what I ultimately am the biggest critic of my own life and my own history. I love it. Everybody wants to color code lies, or, little lies, a little white lie. And also to the extent of that vigorous honesty of lying by omission, or being honest when you get caught, and the whole concept of half the truth is a whole lie. And this goes again into, all the one-liners that I absolutely love. Let's talk about, in particular, the concept of you're only as sick as your secrets.
Wow, that's heavy.
And honesty in recovery.
Well, if you're holding on to things that, I know that sometimes I look at things that I used to do and I would shiver. I'd get like this, ooh, and I'd have to turn my head, even though I'm not talking to anyone, just thinking about it. Those were the secrets that I needed to share with other people, because if I didn't, I would always feel that way about myself, where I'd have to turn my head. I couldn't look at myself and say that I was a healed, whole person. Now, I didn't have to tell everybody, because people sometimes misunderstand that honesty is not about me sharing my entire life in front of a room full of people, but I need to understand my life. And that's where the honesty is most important, is that I know the truth.
And that's that piece of, to thy own self be true.
Yes. And that's where we develop the integrity. Like, I do the right thing whether anyone knows I did it or not.
Yeah.
And I can stand on that, but I can't stand on holding secrets and not being able to talk about them, because that's where my recovery lies.
Yeah.
Those instances of terrible judgment or terrible activity, whatever it was that
Part
happened.
of the healing process for us. Let it go.
If I don't share that, if I don't look at that and I hold it in, whenever I'm alone and I look at myself, that's the only thing that I'm gonna see. It's like the pimple on my face. That's the only thing that I see. Everyone else sees the entire face, probably didn't even notice I had a pimple, but in my mind, that everyone sees that. And that's what a terrible secret is similar
Which brings us to stupid thing number 5. The concept of feeling special or unique, and in the sense of not being able to identify with others. That uniqueness of sometimes, I'm not as bad as that guy.
I didn't do that.
Subconsciously, we start the rationalization and our own self-manipulation that ends up having us thinking we're not as bad as that guy. Now, whether it's, for example, alcohol. I drink beer, he drinks liquor. If we're talking about cocaine, I know for, a long time, the stinking thinking I had was, well, I'm not smoking crack. I'm just sniffing it. I mean, and that can go along with anything. And I've even seen it with heroin users. At least I'll never shoot. I'll never shoot. What do you think the dangers are, of feeling special or unique? Because as far as I'm concerned, the key to recovery is being open, not selective when it comes also to taking suggestions in the manner of, I'm willing to do this, but I'm not going to do that. And I shouldn't have to do that because I'm not as bad as him.
I believe that my life is important. Without my life, I'm not here. And there are a lot of people that are affected by that. I used to think that I was only hurting myself, and that was the most selfish, self-centered thing I ever said. And if I believe that my life is important, then I should really, really want to do everything that I have to do or that I can do to save my life and to live the most successful life possible.
Even the hard stuff.
Especially the hard stuff.
That's the growing pains.
Because the hard stuff is what builds muscle, it builds character. It makes the life that I'm living worthwhile.
I love that concept. Like, how much of a challenge would it be for you and me to go into a gym right now, whether it's Planet Fitness or wherever, and to start bench pressing 10 pounds?
It wouldn't be
and be
too
proud
hard.
of that.
Yeah, because exactly, right?
Look at me.
But this is what happens. I go in, I go to a meeting, I grab a sponsor, I tell them a couple of stories, but I don't do any real work. I don't go peel back the layers. And
You're
layers
around the
and
rooms,
layers.
but not in the rooms.
Not involved. And that's because there's nothing really wrong with me. I'm a man. I'm supposed to know certain things, but certain things I didn't learn. And I'm too proud to tell you that. So I suffer silently. And I act like I'm better than the people that are there. There's nothing worse than watching people that I thought I was better than ride by me while I'm standing on the corner and wondering, how the hell did they stay sober? And I got a brown paper bag in my hand trying to figure out what my next move is. There's nothing worse than being brought face to face with the reality that I'm not that unique. I am who I am, and I need to fix that.
And when you talk about needing to fix things, that goes on to number 6. Our willingness or lack of willingness to make amends. And one of the great things that I've heard is, don't allow making amends to turn into making excuses. And the need to develop a strong spiritual foundation in recovery. We absolutely must be willing, which is the W of how, honest, open, and willing, to really accept full responsibility for our harmful behavior and attempt to repair our damaged relationships with family, friends, loved ones, in the workplace, in our personal lives. And making amends is the opposite of making excuses for behavior. We can't keep using, and I'll throw myself under the bus. We can't pull that addict card forever. I did this because I was high. I did this because I'm an addict. Well, that's obvious. Everybody knows that. You were probably the only person that didn't recognize it. So at that point, and then from there on, at what point do we go back and make amends? And what's the biggest danger you think, Jay? Because I'm thinking guilt, shame, and blame. But what are the real dangers of not making amends? Not the dangers to other people, but the dangers to ourselves. Because I truly think there's a big focus on forgiveness. And I think sometimes not enough focus on the forgiveness of ourselves. So if we don't make amends to other people, what kind of profound negative effect and obstacle can that be to our recovery process?
Ultimately, I know who I am. And if I don't challenge myself to do more and bigger, then what I will do is I will continue to do the same limited work.
Yeah.
I know who I am. I know that I'm supposed to make amends. I know what the rules say. If I can get around it, I'll get around it. But I'm not fooling anybody. I'm fooling me. I become this person that knows that I didn't really do what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, you know the difference between right and wrong.
Right.
That's the piece there. Because, we can try to act stupid.
And I did it, or try to add to it or lie about it, but I know who I am. I know what I did. And if I'm not exercising the best judgment or making the muscle of, I'm contrite. I do feel, remorse, guilt, and shame over what I did. And I'm willing to do whatever I have to do. If I don't look that person in the eye and tell them this and give them what I took or try to make it right financially as well, then I'm still walking around free of any of the growth that's available.
You're stunting your own growth.
I'm stunting my own growth.
So Jay, like, when we're talking about mind-altering substances way back in stupid thing number 1, number 6, there are exceptions sometimes to these rules. In not making amends, the exception when to do so would cause harm to ourselves or others. Sometimes it's best to leave well enough alone.
I know right from wrong. I know who I can approach and who I shouldn't. I'm the one that lives this life. I can't use that idea that I really didn't know that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to do this the right way, then I'm going to use the best judgment, and I'm going to be more concerned about someone else's well-being than I am about mine. I'm not making amends to people because I care about what they feel, as far as their hatred towards me or their anger and animosity towards me. I understand that. That's why I'm here to try to set it right.
And we're not saying nothing in life is perfect.
Nothing.
And that's not the
We're not trying to be
piece here.
saints.
We're, it's progress, not perfection. And that
important.
takes us to stupid thing number 7.
Uh-oh.
Any attempt in trying to use the program to become perfect. There is no perfect program. What works for you or what worked for you may not necessarily work great for me. And the piece here about any attempt at perfection, is it not also a major setup for self-sabotage and disappointment, a missed expectation on oneself? And all 3 of those things can also be a trigger to relapse.
That is relapse. See, relapse is not the use of drugs. It includes the use of drugs at some point, but relapse is the return of behaviors and attitudes. So because I'm doing right and I start using right to make me better than you, isn't that addiction? Isn't that the same attitude and that separates me from the rest?
I hear a little bit of comparison and not identifying. Jay, number 8, stupid thing number 8 is confusing the self-concern with selfishness. And the piece here of self-concern is not the same as selfishness. Many of us have heard the saying, it's a selfish program. Now, you can't confuse that as being selfish. Self-concern is taking care of you, but while also keeping others in mind as well. At the end of the day, you have to look out for yourself. And that doesn't mean disregarding everyone else, but it just puts you and your recovery first. You're number 1. It reminds me of, traveling on a plane, and when they take off, they show you the exits, and then they also say, in the event of an emergency, you know where I'm going, Jay.
First, and then you help someone else.
Then you can help somebody else.
Exactly.
The flight attendants direct us to place our oxygen mask on first before we can help another person. So that's not being selfish.
That's being wise.
It's being wise.
That's being wise.
So the wisdom that comes with recovery. And I think a lot of times people aren't used to us looking out for number 1
in that way
in recovery. Then it's like, what's your problem? Now, you're all of a sudden greater than everybody else.
And that's the worst thing that someone can say in regard to being your friend or someone that loves you, and they see you doing what you're supposed to do, and it doesn't include them, or it's not a part of who you used to be. You're trying to aspire to be a better person.
Yeah, why'd you
change?
And
they
they
use that against you.
Why'd you change?
That's horrible, man.
I liked you better when you were getting high.
I liked you better when you was, because I was more apt to do something that would include you.
And that you wanted.
That I didn't want. But you'd be happy and I'd be miserable. No. And that's the selfish part. But to be selfless also means to help others and not try to use the words and twist them so that it benefits you at every turn. Sometimes being selfish hurts, man. I have to do what's right, not what I want.
You have to do some things that aren't always easy.
They're not always easy. Yeah, that hurts.
You have to cut some people loose.
Yeah, got to let go of a lot of people, and even if they're family.
Yeah.
And not because I don't like them. I love them. I want to hang out with them. I enjoy their company. But I enjoy their company and we do the wrong things and I can't chance that, man. I have to keep my recovery first. Otherwise I lose everything that I built.
And what do they say? The first thing that you put in your
In front of your recovery
is the
you
first
lose.
thing you'll lose. Yeah.
That's right. And I'm not going to lose another anything.
We lost enough. Stupid thing number 9. We're talking about, the need to kind of be, self-concerned in improvement. But sometimes there's some futile self-improvement games that we play. Playing games like trying to be perfect, comparing the war stories, trying to one-up the next guy to make yourself feel good, which is a complete waste of time. Someone runs around, telling
I got
everyone.
5 sponsees.
I've got 5 sponsees. It's 10 o'clock and I've been to 8 meetings already today.
Yeah.
Like, who are you trying to impress? Like, sometimes I think, for example, like somebody thinks, Bill W's got a big scoreboard up in the sky and saying, there you go, Jay.
You get an extra kudo.
Yeah, we're gonna, dip your coin in gold, as opposed to everybody else's. Who are we in competition with? No one. We just try to become a better person than the person we were the day before.
And just try to help others. But sometimes it's the return of the attitudes and behaviors, that competitive spirit. And that lends us to the same attitudes that created the environment for the addiction to begin with. So we have to be careful. We
Back
gotta
to
keep
square
it
one.
balanced. Yeah, and that's why spiritual connection is most important, man. Having a grounded approach to life, not thinking I'm better than anyone, because I'm probably worse than everyone. I've just been blessed. And if I could keep that idea going, then I might have a shot at doing some pretty remarkable things that help other people.
We're going to move on to stupid thing number 10, Jay.
Uh-oh.
And I don't want you to look at the screen, but I want you to guess what stupid thing is number 10.
I don't know.
Which one of the biggest downfalls in recovery?
Not asking for help?
In relationships.
Oh, relationships.
Relationships. We weren't going to let that one slide by. Stupid thing number 10, not getting help for relationship troubles.
But I thought you weren't supposed to be in a relationship in the first year.
Well, here's a good point. Dysfunctional relationships, Jay, here's a statistic. Dysfunctional relationships are one of the top 3 causes of relapse. And think about this. If you were actively using for 5, 10 plus years, and you are still in the same relationship you have been for that period of time, when you get sober, how are things going to be different? Many times people want, their loved ones to get sober, yet when that happens, the recovering addict now has a clearer mind, may attempt to set healthy boundaries, where we're just talking about self-concern, and we don't reach out for help. And we stay stuck because there's something about the dynamic of a relationship that has addiction involved in it that makes it dysfunctional
to begin with.
And we stay stuck in it. Mm-hmm. So now we get sober, but we're still in that same dysfunctional relationship. Mm-hmm. And if we haven't recognized, or for example, our partner hasn't recognized in the 5, 10 plus years we've been together, that something's twisted. Could be you, could be me, could be you and me together. Mm-hmm. If we don't get some sort of outside assistance to help with that relationship, is it not true that if nothing changes, nothing changes?
Nothing at all. Relationships are complicated to begin with. Learning to love myself was a difficult task. And how am I supposed to learn to love me while still maintaining a relationship with someone else that, is growing and changing and evolving as well as I am? So, with all of those dynamics in place to begin with, you add the addiction, and that is a recipe for disaster. So there's a word you use, stuck. And I always wonder, when was I stuck? And I was stuck most of the time because there was things that I was supposed to know that I didn't. And I never asked anyone. I tried to fake it through. And
fake it till I make it.
And eventually, somewhere along the line, I'll get it. And I didn't. And what happens is, I get stuck, I don't ask for help because my pride tells me I'm a man, I'm supposed to know how to handle these things. And then I start to linger in that same stuck spot in this situation, and then that happens again in another. And then all of a sudden, I've grown as much as I can grow on my own, and I still refuse to say anything. And the relationship suffers. And it turns back into the relationship it was because I don't know how to make it grow. Anything that doesn't grow regresses. It's not gonna stay stunted. It either grows or it goes backwards.
I want to go back to something you said initially. You know, in how many of us have heard that saying, don't get in a new relationship for the first year? And, you know, sometimes I wonder who came up with that, because, like, what happens on a 366th day, Jay? You know, like 1 year and 1 day, all of a sudden everything's awesome. Think about this. If you've had poor choice in choosing a partner and nothing changes, you can wait a year, you can wait 2 years, you can wait 3 or even 5. You're going to end up in the same boat that you just got out of. It's always a good idea to seek assistance, ask someone else's opinion, bounce your thoughts off a sponsor. You've talked about sponsorship.
Sober support.
And sometimes,
family.
if and when necessary, seek professional counseling services. Because when we talk about dysfunctional relationships that we engage in when actively using, a lot of times the focus can be on the other person. But many of us have found ourselves in a position of codependency, being a doormat, trauma, abuse, emotional, mental, maybe physical. Things happen when people use.
We're attracted to something in people. And what are we attracted to? And where does that attraction come from? And if it's something that happened that is sick and we don't see the sickness, then we are doomed to be in this cycle of relationships that fail and bring about calamitous lifestyles for the children that are involved. So what we need to do is that first year that you're free of any relationship, you should be looking at self and trying to understand these things. That's what the steps are for.
Yeah.
For self cleansing, man, that I start to really desire what it is that I should desire in life rather than what I've been desiring. Because the stuff that I desired yielded terrible results. So then I have to look at what else can I look, what is positive in life that I can be a part of that, you know, is going to bring me a different result. And in starting to see those things, I may be blessed with something, a companion that is suitable.
You're talking
for
about the
lifestyle.
definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result, seeking out the same relationships
Same
and expecting
stuff.
a different result.
And it's not going to be any different.
Jay, I got sober in July of 2007. You?
May 2008.
So it's been a few 24s for both of us. Stupid thing number 11, believing that life should be easy. Well, Jay, I got a few years sober. You got a few years sober. Why are they still sending us electric bills?
Yeah.
Why do I still got to pay a car payment, Jay? You know, so what? You're sober. You're still going to have responsibilities. Bills need to get paid. Things need to get done. In all honesty, whether you like it or not, going beyond the belief that now I'm sober, life should be easy. You know, many recovering addicts also find themselves victim to a sense of entitlement. I'm sober, so someone or everyone owes me something.
The last year was the worst or toughest year that I've ever had, period. Barring, you know, incarceration, even homelessness and addiction, it was tough, man. I had a lot of things that I had to deal with. I wouldn't have traded that year for any other year, though, because I exercised muscles that I didn't know I had. How do you know what you're made of until you're called to use what's there? And, you know, life sometimes brings you that. If nothing else, I can help someone else when they're going through a tough time by having experienced some things and being able to tell people.
Yeah, I've heard, you know, someone's recovery is kind of like a tea bag. You don't know how strong it is until they find themselves in hot water.
And I wasn't in any trouble. I just had to deal with a bunch of issues that life will sometimes give you, you know. But I will tell you this, through all of the issues that I dealt with, car issues and family deaths, My wife will still be graduating in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
She'll still be graduating and being a registered nurse. And that was the goal since we started, me to be a counselor, her to be a registered nurse. And it was going so smoothly. I was like, wow, why didn't we do this before? And then these incidences started happening and it didn't stop. And I didn't think that it would be possible to navigate through everything. But
And there's no shortcuts to any place worth going, and anything that comes easy,
you got to work for those things.
It's not worth it.
Man. If I had no goal, then maybe I would have just gave up and said, you know what, hey,
Yeah.
I tried. But there was a greater goal in mind. And the whole idea of recovery is to set a goal, reach objectives, set new goals. And, that spiritual connection, man. There's this higher calling that tells me that there's something that I'm being prepared for. I have no idea what it is. But sometimes we go through things and we don't understand it until later. Like, yo, you know what? That defines something in me.
Yeah. We don't always see the finish line at the beginning. It's like you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. And you talk about things that you've gone through, and likewise, I've gone through, and I continue to, and I will continue to, and that's life on life's terms. Stupid thing number 12 is using the program to handle everything. Not one thing works for everything. We both know that.
That's
Needing
right.
additional help beyond, for example, your sober support network, if we're talking about AA, NA, is not a negative reflection on the programs of AA or NA. There's special circumstances and needs require specialized services. You may not feel comfortable talking about trauma or being raped in a co-ed meeting, and you shouldn't. Millions of people have used sober support groups like AA, NA, and have been able to live long-term recovery, and that is truly a blessing. I know for myself and for many. But sometimes we need to seek services beyond the rooms, professionals to help us, and that's not a sign of weakness. It's another step in the healing process. Let's be honest, some are sicker than others, right? Just because someone is sitting in the basement of a church doesn't make them in recovery any more than sitting in a garage makes them a car. Using one program, any program,
as a universal tool to solve all problems is not effective thinking.
And it's not as effective as if you use it with other tools in a toolbox.
That's right.
It's like putting all your eggs in one basket.
It's not effective. I also have to tell people a lot of times, because some people buy into recovery on a large scale.
Sure.
Be careful who you talk to. The same way that you found out what brand of whiskey you liked or who to go to when you were copping, the same thing in the rooms, man. You gotta not judge people, but pay attention to the people that are there so that you'll know who's actually living the program and who just knows the words and
who's walking the walk, who's talking the talk.
Right.
Jay, because both you and I know. I know people that I can't tell you how many people I've met that I think have photographic memory. They can recite pages out of the Bible. They can recite, big book page 56, 62, 51.
Verbatim.
I feel like we're waiting to hike a football. People that are walking the walk, not just talking the talk, because it goes back to the stick with the winners.
That's right.
Look at and seek out someone that's got something that you want at the end of the day. Not somebody that just,
knows
hey,
how to
wow,
talk.
they look good. They roll up and, it looks like a fashion show. The best dressed person there.
Yeah, that was my thing. I love the people that dress well. I wanted to get those shoes and I missed everything.
Where'd you get those Stacey Adams?
I missed everything that was said, and I grew worse as a human being because of what I was looking at. If I'm attracted to certain things, and I didn't take the time to find the people that could give me the right medicine so that I could heal. I looked at the outside. I wanted the shoes and the pants and the shirt.
And I love that, because so many of us compare our insides to other people's outsides.
I thought that because you dressed right,
You must
felt
be
right.
working a program.
Oh, your program must be dynamic,
Woo.
out of sight. And I tried it, and I didn't succeed. I fell, and I fell hard. And I needed to, because I wasn't prepared to do any of the work that was necessary. I was prepared to get the stuff. I was prepared to get the clothes. I was prepared to buy
Let's
the
go
shoes,
shopping.
but I was not prepared to make the changes that were necessary to affect change long-term in my life, to be the responsible man, father, husband, employee, friend. You know, I didn't know what those words meant. I just thought I had to show up. And when I showed up, I thought that people would bow down and be appreciative that I came. I didn't notice anyone else was in the room. Other people's presence in the room didn't mean anything to me except for what they could give me. Recovery showed me that it is important to be humble, man, and to take everyone's suggestion, not just the ones that I agree with, but some of the ones that I think are far-fetched. Like when I was told to pray every day, twice. Me and God got a good understanding. I don't need to pray. He made me. He know what I'm feeling. But it wasn't until I started to exercise that and start, really doing what was required as far as the program, that I started seeing things about myself that I knew needed changing. I didn't see them before. I thought they were fine. But they, after a while, you start following suggestions. You start seeing things that need to happen in your life. And how are you going to make that happen? How am I going to become more responsible? How am I going to start looking at people like they count rather than what they can give me? And have a relationship with a female without trying to get her in bed. How can I make that happen? I work in an agency full of women, and I've shaken all of their hands. I've given them hugs, but I've never gone beyond what is appropriate. You understand? And that was taught to me through this process, because I'd have been fired a long time ago.
Jay, we know the 12 steps, we know the 12 traditions, we know the 12 promises. I really appreciate you coming in and discussing this. This is a great book by Alan Berger, The 12 Stupid Things That Mess Up Recovery. It's a pleasure as always, Jay.
Hey, thank you, Dean.
Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.